The stars were quiet that day, their light dimmed by the endless void of space. Captain Elias Voss leaned back in his chair aboard the Scavenger's Pride, a patched-up mining vessel held together more by hope than engineering. His crew of 12 was restless. They'd been drifting for weeks without so much as a scrap of valuable metal to sell back at the colony. But today felt different. Today, something had pinged on their scanners. "Captain," said Mira Chen, the ship's engineer and resident tech wizard, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You're gonna want to see this." Elias turned toward the main screen where an image flickered to life, a massive structure floating silently against the blackness. It looked like a city carved into steel, bristling with weapons turrets and glowing energy conduits. Its name, faded but still legible along its hull, sent shivers down everyone's spines. "Aegis Dawn." "That's not ours," muttered Arlen Drake, the second in command, narrowing his eyes at the sight. "And it sure ain't human." "No kidding," Elias replied, rubbing his stubbled chin. "Looks Caliph-made. What's one of their supercarriers doing out here?" The Caliph were ancient aliens who once ruled large parts of the galaxy before vanishing centuries ago. Their technology was legendary, powerful, elegant, and far beyond anything humans could replicate. But they weren't exactly known for leaving things behind. "Well, whatever it is, it's dead in the water," Mira said, tapping furiously at her console. "No active defenses, no power signature. Just drifting." "Too good to be true," Arlen muttered under his breath. "Maybe," Elias shot back, standing up. "But if there's even a fraction of Caliph tech inside that thing, we'll never have to scavenge again." The decision was unanimous, or close enough. The Scavenger's Pride approached cautiously, its engines humming softly as they maneuvered alongside the colossal ship. Up close, the Aegis Dawn was awe-inspiring. Its surface gleamed faintly despite eons of neglect, and strange symbols etched into its metal seemed almost alive, shifting subtly when you stared too long. Getting aboard wasn't easy. The airlock refused to budge until Mira hacked through layers of alien encryption, muttering curses under her breath. When the door finally hissed open, the crew stepped into darkness. Flashlights cut through the gloom, revealing corridors wide enough to fit 3 men side by side. The walls were smooth, unmarked except for occasional streaks of dried fluid that smelled faintly metallic. "This place gives me the creeps," whispered Jace, the youngest member of the team. He clutched his rifle tightly, scanning every shadow. "Relax," Elias said, though his own grip on his weapon betrayed his calm tone. "It's just a ship. A really big, weird ship." They moved deeper, finding rooms filled with alien machinery. Some consoles still glowed faintly, responding to touch with bursts of incomprehensible text. In one chamber, they discovered rows of dormant drones hanging from the ceiling like mechanical bats. Another room contained what looked like cryopods, but all were empty, their occupants long gone. Then came the signs of violence. Scorch marks marred the pristine walls. Broken glass littered the floor near shattered control panels. And then there were the warnings. Scratched into the metal in jagged Caliph script were phrases translated awkwardly by Mira's handheld device. "Do not awaken. Containment breach imminent. Run." Arlen frowned, running a hand over one of the messages. "Think these guys were scared of their own ship? Or scared of what's inside it?" Mira murmured. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered. Then, slowly, the hum of machinery began to grow louder. Somewhere deep within the ship, something stirred. Elias exchanged uneasy glances with his crew. Whatever they'd awakened, there was no turning back now. The hum grew louder, reverberating through the corridors of the Aegis Dawn like a heartbeat. The crew froze, their flashlights casting shaky beams across the alien walls. Captain Elias Voss clenched his jaw, gripping his rifle tighter as he scanned the dimly lit hallway. "What the hell did we just do?" Jace whispered, his voice trembling. He was the youngest and least experienced member of the team, but even Elias could see the fear in his eyes mirrored in everyone else's. "I don't know," Mira Chen said sharply, her fingers flying over her handheld device. "But whatever it is, it's powering up." The lights flickered again, this time stabilizing into a soft blue glow that illuminated the ship's interior. Strange symbols on the walls began to pulse faintly, as if alive. The air felt heavier now, charged with an energy that made the hairs on the back of Elias's neck stand up. "Mira, can you shut it down?" Elias asked, glancing at her. She shook her head without looking up. "Not yet. I'm still trying to decode its systems. This isn't human tech. It's Caliph. Their language is complicated." "Well, hurry up," Arlen Drake snapped, his usual cockiness replaced by unease. "We don't know what we've unleashed here." Elias shot him a warning glare before turning back to the group. "Everyone stay calm. Let's move toward the central chamber. If there's a way to control this thing, it'll be there." The decision was unanimous, or close enough. They moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing eerily in the vastness of the ship. As they ventured deeper, the signs of abandonment became more pronounced. Broken furniture, shattered glass, and scorch marks told a story of chaos and violence. But amidst the destruction, they found treasures beyond imagination. Consoles displaying holographic maps of star systems, weapons racks brimming with sleek alien firearms, and storage compartments filled with glowing crystals that pulsed with untapped energy. "This stuff alone could make us rich," Arlen muttered, picking up one of the crystals. It hummed softly in his hand, sending faint vibrations through his arm. "Imagine selling these back home." "We're not here to loot," Elias growled, though his gaze lingered on the crystal for a moment too long. "Our priority is figuring out how to get off this ship safely." They finally reached what appeared to be the central chamber, a massive circular room dominated by a towering console at its center. The console glowed faintly, covered in shifting patterns of light and alien script. Above them, a translucent dome revealed the endless void of space, dotted with distant stars. "This must be the command center," Mira said, already crouching beside the console. Her fingers danced across the surface, attempting to interface with the alien system. "If I can access the core, maybe I can stabilize." Before she could finish, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Alarms blared, filling the chamber with a deafening wail. Red warning lights flashed across the walls, bathing everything in an ominous crimson hue. "What now?" Jace shouted, stumbling backward. "The reactor's online." Mira yelled over the noise. "It's unstable. If we don't stabilize it." Suddenly, the entire ship lurched forward, throwing everyone off balance. Through the dome above, they saw the stars shift as the Aegis Dawn broke free from its stationary drift. "Oh no," Arlen groaned, staring at the console. "We're moving." Elias grabbed Mira by the shoulder. "Can you stop it?" "I'm trying." She snapped, frantically typing commands into her device. Sweat dripped down her face as the console responded erratically, flashing symbols faster than she could process. "This thing doesn't want to be controlled." Another jolt sent them sprawling. Outside, the Scavenger's Pride drifted farther away, its tiny frame dwarfed by the colossal Supercarrier. One of the crew members pointed wildly toward the viewport. "Our ship. We're losing it. Damn it." Elias cursed, scrambling to his feet. He turned to Mira. "Fix this. Now." "I'm working on it," she shouted back, her hands shaking as she worked. Then, suddenly, the alarms stopped. The red lights faded, replaced by the soft blue glow once more. The ship steadied itself, drifting silently through space. For a moment, silence reigned. The crew exchanged wary glances, unsure whether to feel relief or dread. "We're still alive," Arlen said slowly, letting out a shaky laugh. "Guess that's something." "Don't celebrate yet," Elias warned, his voice low. "We're stranded aboard a haunted alien warship. And trust me, this isn't over." As if on cue, the console emitted a single piercing tone. On its surface, a new message appeared in glowing letters. Welcome, intruders. The message on the console, Welcome, intruders, hung in the air like a challenge. The crew stood frozen, their breaths shallow as they stared at the glowing letters. Captain Elias Voss was the first to break the silence. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice tight with unease. "Is it talking to us?" Mira Chen leaned closer to the console, her fingers hovering hesitantly over its surface. "It's addressing us," she said slowly, her brow furrowed. "But I don't think it's friendly." Before anyone could respond, the console shifted again. The alien symbols rearranged themselves into something new, accompanied by a faint hum that seemed to resonate in their chests. Mira's handheld device buzzed with activity as it translated the text into fragmented English. "You tread where none should go. Turn back." Jace, the youngest crew member, took a nervous step backward. "Okay, yeah. Turning back sounds good. Who votes we leave this thing alone?" No one answered. They couldn't, not when the Aegis Dawn held secrets that could change everything. But the warning weighed heavily on all of them. Elias shook his head firmly. "We can't turn back now. Not after what just happened. Mira, keep working on it. We need answers." Mira nodded, though her hands trembled slightly as she touched the console again. This time, instead of warnings, the screen displayed a series of images, flickering holograms of strange beings clad in sleek armor, standing amidst ruins and devastation. It didn't take long for the crew to realize who these figures were. The Caliph, the ship's creators. "These are logs," Mira muttered, her eyes scanning the data rapidly. "Records left behind." "Oh no." "What is it?" Arlen Drake demanded, stepping forward. His usual arrogance had faded, replaced by suspicion and impatience. "They were experimenting," Mira explained, her voice dropping. "With energy sources, something powerful enough to destroy entire planets." The room fell silent. Even Arlen looked shaken. The implications were staggering and terrifying. "They called it Starfire," Mira continued, reading aloud from the fragments of information. "Energy harvested directly from collapsing stars. But something went wrong. Their tests caused chain reactions, wiped out civilizations." She paused, swallowing hard before continuing. "They tried to contain it. That's why they abandoned the ship. Whatever they were trying to stop, it's still here." As if on cue, the lights dimmed again. A low, guttural sound echoed through the chamber, vibrating deep within their bones. It wasn't mechanical. It sounded alive. "Did you hear that?" Jace whispered, clutching his rifle tightly. "What was that?" "I don't know," Ilias replied, his voice steady despite the tension radiating off him. He scanned the room, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. "Stay sharp." Moments later, the whispers began. Faint at first, almost imperceptible, but growing louder with each passing second. They came from everywhere and nowhere, overlapping in languages the crew couldn't understand. Some sounded pleading, others angry, and a few downright hostile. "Is this the ship talking?" Arlen asked, his tone laced with disbelief. "It's not the ship," Mira said quietly, her face pale. "It's whatever they left behind." Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply. Frost began forming along the edges of the console, spreading outward like icy veins. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they became deafening. One word repeated itself over and over, clearer than the rest. "Leave." Elias clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay calm. "We're not leaving," he said firmly, though his voice betrayed a flicker of doubt. "Not until we figure out how to control this thing." Mira hesitated, then nodded. She turned back to the console, her hands moving quickly despite the chill creeping into her bones. "If I can access the core systems, maybe I can shut down whatever's causing this." But as she worked, the whispers changed. Instead of anger, they turned mocking, almost taunting. And then, without warning, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Alarms blared once more, red lights flashing across the walls. "We've got company," Arlen shouted, pointing toward the corridor. Shadows moved there, shapes too large and too fast to be human. Elias raised his rifle, his heart pounding. "Everyone, get ready." Whatever the Caliph had sealed away aboard the Aegis Dawn, it wasn't happy about being disturbed. The shadows in the corridor moved with unnatural speed, twisting and writhing like living smoke. Captain Elias Voss tightened his grip on his rifle, his eyes locked on the darkness ahead. The crew stood shoulder to shoulder, their weapons raised but their faces pale with uncertainty. "What are those things?" Jace whispered, his voice trembling as he stared at the shifting forms. "I don't know," Elias replied, his tone sharp. "But they're not friendly." Before anyone could react, one of the shapes lunged forward, a towering figure made of shimmering, translucent energy. It had no face, just a swirling void where its head should have been. Its presence sent a chill through the air, making it hard to breathe. "Fire!" Elias shouted. The crew opened fire, their bullets sparking harmlessly against the creature's translucent form. It didn't even flinch, advancing steadily toward them with an eerie calm. Behind it, more shapes began to emerge from the shadows, each one pulsating with the same cold energy. "They're not physical," Mira yelled, frantically typing commands into her handheld device. "They're some kind of energy manifestation." "Well, how do we stop them?" Arlen snapped, firing another useless round. "I'm working on it," Mira shot back, sweat beading on her forehead as she worked. The first creature reached the group, its form expanding suddenly. A blast of icy wind knocked everyone off their feet, sending rifles skittering across the floor. Jace cried out as frost spread over his arm, freezing the fabric of his jacket. "We can't fight this," Jace shouted, scrambling backward. "We need to run." "No," Elias barked, grabbing his rifle. "Running won't solve anything." "Mira, hurry up." Mira ignored him, her fingers flying across the console. Suddenly, the central chamber lit up with a bright blue glow. The console responded, projecting a holographic map of the ship overlaid with glowing symbols. One section of the map pulsed brighter than the others, a massive chamber labeled in Caliph script. "That's the core," Mira said, pointing to the pulsing area. "If we can get there, maybe I can activate the ship's defenses. Something tells me these things don't belong here." "Then let's move," Elias ordered, helping Jace to his feet. The crew sprinted down the corridors, the creatures hot on their heels. Their movements were erratic, darting between walls and ceilings with impossible agility. The whispers returned, louder now, filling the air with overlapping voices that seemed to mock their every step. "This way," Mira shouted, leading them toward the core chamber. She swiped her device against a panel near a sealed door, and it hissed open just as one of the creatures slammed into the wall behind them. Inside the core chamber, the atmosphere was oppressive. The room was dominated by a massive column of swirling light, the ship's reactor. Strange runes floated around it, spinning lazily in midair. Mira rushed to a nearby console, her hands moving faster than ever. "Hurry," Arlen yelled, keeping watch at the entrance. The creatures were gathering outside, their forms merging together into a single monstrous entity. "I'm trying," Mira snapped, sweat dripping down her face. Finally, the console emitted a low hum, and panels along the walls slid open, revealing rows of sleek alien weaponry. "Grab those," Elias commanded, motioning to the weapons. Each crew member snatched one, feeling its unfamiliar weight in their hands. Unlike human firearms, these emitted a faint hum when activated, glowing faintly at the tips. As the merged creature forced its way into the chamber, Elias raised his weapon and fired. This time, the bolt of energy struck true, tearing through the creature's form. It let out a deafening screech, splitting apart into smaller entities before retreating into the shadows. "It worked," Jace exclaimed, lowering his weapon. What did you do? I rerouted power from the core to the ship's defense systems, Mira explained, breathing heavily. It's temporary, though. We've only bought ourselves some time. Elias nodded grimly. Time is all we need. Let's figure out what else this ship can do, and who else might come looking for us. Unbeknownst to them, their skirmish hadn't gone unnoticed. Far beyond the Aegis dawn, sensors aboard a Scytherian warship detected the energy spike. The alien fleet turned course, heading straight for the Supercarrier. Humanity's first contact with the galaxy's most feared species was about to begin, and it wouldn't be peaceful. The crew stood in stunned silence, their weapons still humming faintly as the last traces of the energy creatures dissolved into nothingness. For a moment, relief washed over them. They had survived, against all odds. But the victory felt hollow. None of them could shake the feeling that they were only postponing the inevitable. Captain Elias Voss broke the silence first. "Good work, Mira," he said, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "Whatever you did back there saved us." Mira Chen wiped sweat from her brow, leaning heavily against the console. "It's not permanent," she warned. "I just rerouted power to the ship's defensive systems. If those things come back, and they will, we'll need more than luck to stop them." Elias nodded grimly, his gaze drifting toward the glowing reactor at the center of the chamber. "Then we keep moving. We figure out what this ship can do before they return, or worse, before someone else finds us." But even as he spoke, tension simmered beneath the surface. The Aegis Dawn wasn't just a relic. It was a weapon of unimaginable power. And power had a way of changing people. Lieutenant Arlen Drake lingered near the edge of the group, his expression unreadable. His fingers traced the sleek alien rifle he now held, marveling at its weightless design and lethal precision. He hadn't spoken much since the fight, but his mind raced with possibilities. This ship could reshape the galaxy, if wielded correctly. And he couldn't help but wonder, why should humanity settle for scraps when they could rule? Hours later, the crew gathered in the central chamber to assess their next move. Mira projected a holographic map of nearby star systems onto the wall, pointing to potential destinations where they might find help or safety. "We're too exposed here," she said. "If we stay in open space, anyone scanning for anomalies will find us. We need to hide until we understand this ship better." Elias agreed. "Let's head for the nearest uncharted sector, somewhere deep enough to lose ourselves." But Arlen stepped forward, his tone sharp. "Why are we running? We've got the most advanced ship in existence right under our feet. Why not use it?" "For what?" Elias countered, narrowing his eyes. "To pick fights we can't win. To draw attention from every hostile species in the galaxy. This isn't about conquest, Arlen. It's survival." Arlen smirked, though there was no humor in it. "Survival is weak. With this ship, we don't have to survive. We can dominate. Imagine it, humanity finally taking its place among the stars. No more colonies begging for scraps. No more bowing to alien overlords. We'd be unstoppable." The room fell silent. Some of the crew exchanged uneasy glances, while others looked intrigued by Arlen's words. Even Jace, usually timid, seemed to hesitate, caught between fear and ambition. "You're talking madness," Elias snapped, stepping closer to Arlen. "This ship wasn't built for humans. We don't know how to control it fully. Push too hard, and we'll end up like the Caliph, destroyed by our own hubris." Arlen didn't back down. "And doing nothing will get us killed just the same. You think hiding will save us? Out there," he gestured toward the viewport, where stars glittered coldly. "The galaxy's already noticed us. The Exitherians, the Caliph remnants, maybe even worse. They're coming. When they arrive, we'll need more than empty corridors and broken defenses." Before Elias could respond, an alarm blared sharply, cutting through the argument. Mira rushed to the console, her face paling as data streamed across the screen. "Trouble," she muttered. "Incoming ships, multiple signatures, and they're fast." Elias clenched his fists. Who is it? Mira hesitated, then turned to face him. Etherians. Panic rippled through the group. The Etherians were ruthless conquerors, feared across the galaxy for their brutal efficiency. If they tracked the Aegis Dawn, it meant one thing: war. Arlen grinned darkly, raising his alien rifle. Looks like we won't have to wait long to test your leadership, Captain. Whether you like it or not, the galaxy's about to see what humans are capable of. As the Etherian fleet closed in, the crew braced themselves for battle. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Cracks that threatened to tear them apart long before the enemy arrived. The Etherian fleet loomed on the holographic display, their sleek warships closing in like predators circling prey. Captain Elias Voss stared at the screen, his jaw clenched as he weighed their options. They were outnumbered and outgunned. No matter how advanced the Aegis Dawn was, they barely understood its systems. One wrong move could spell disaster. Suggestions? Elias asked, glancing around the room. The crew stood tense, their faces a mix of fear and determination. Mira Chen stepped forward, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. We can't fight them head-on. Not yet. But we've got one advantage: speed. This ship's engines are far beyond anything that Etherians have. If we jump to FTL now, we might lose them. And go where? Arlen Drake interjected, his tone sharp. Back to hiding. Running won't solve anything. We need to show them what this ship can do. Elias shot him a warning glare. Blowing our cover isn't a strategy. It's suicide. We don't even know if those weapons will work again. We won't know unless we try. Arlen countered, gripping his alien rifle tightly. His ambition burned brighter than ever, fueled by the chaos unfolding around them. If we take out a few of their ships, it'll send a message. Humans aren't easy targets anymore. Jace, who had been quiet until now, spoke up nervously. He's got a point, Captain. If we run, they'll just follow us. And next time, they'll bring reinforcements. Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair. He hated to admit it, but Jace was right. Hiding wasn't an option, not with enemies like the Etherians. Still, engaging them directly felt reckless. They needed another way. What about uncharted space? Mira suggested suddenly, drawing everyone's attention. There are regions of the galaxy no one dares to explore, places filled with anomalies and dangers even the Caliph avoided. If we head there, we might lose the Etherians and buy ourselves time to figure this ship out. Elias considered her words. It was risky. The unknown carried its own threats, but it was better than facing certain death against an overwhelming force. Set coordinates for the nearest anomaly zone. Let's see if we can shake them off. Minutes later, the Aegis Dawn roared to life, its massive engines glowing brighter than any star. The ship surged forward, leaving streaks of light in its wake as it entered faster than light travel. Behind them, the Etherian fleet scrambled to give chase, their ships struggling to keep up. When they emerged from FTL, the view outside the viewport left the crew speechless. Before them stretched a swirling expanse of cosmic phenomena, unlike anything they'd ever seen. Planets orbited black holes without being consumed, nebulae shimmered with colors that defied explanation, and ancient ruins floated silently in the void, remnants of civilizations long extinct. This place, Mira whispered, her eyes wide with awe. It's incredible. But the wonder quickly gave way to unease. Strange readings flooded the consoles, indicating gravitational distortions, radiation spikes, and energy signatures that didn't match anything in their database. We're not alone here, Arlen muttered, scanning the horizon. Something's watching us. As if on cue, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the console displayed new data, multiple objects approaching rapidly from different directions. They weren't ships, they were alive. Massive, serpentine creatures made of pure energy coiled through space, their forms shifting and glowing with otherworldly light. "Those things are heading straight for us," Jace shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Activate the shields," Elias barked, gripping the edge of the console. Mira worked furiously, rerouting power to the defensive systems. The glowing barrier flickered to life just as the first creature slammed into it, sending shockwaves through the ship. The impact knocked several crew members off their feet, but the shield held. For now. "They're testing us," Mira said, her voice trembling. "Like they're curious." Curiosity killed the scavenger, Arlen quipped dryly, raising his weapon. "Should we shoot?" "No," Elias snapped. "Firing might provoke them further. For now, let's focus on evasion." The Aegis Dawn twisted and turned through the chaotic expanse, dodging the creature's attacks while searching for a safe path. But the ship seemed to resist their commands, veering toward specific coordinates as if guided by some unseen force. "Captain," Mira said hesitantly, pointing to the console, "I think the ship's leading us somewhere. Look at these readings. It's responding to something ahead." Elias frowned, staring at the glowing markers on the map. Whatever awaited them, it was clear they had no choice but to follow. The Aegis Dawn wasn't just a relic of the past. It was steering them toward answers hidden deep within the cosmos, and perhaps toward salvation or destruction. The Aegis Dawn surged forward, its course locked onto coordinates that seemed to defy logic. Captain Elias Voss gripped the edge of the console as the ship navigated through the swirling chaos of uncharted space. Around them, the energy creatures continued their relentless pursuit, their serpentine forms twisting and writhing against the glowing shield barrier. Each impact sent tremors through the hull, but the ship refused to yield, its systems adapting faster than anyone could comprehend. "What's pulling us?" Elias demanded, his voice strained as he turned to Mira Chen. "You said this thing has a mind of its own." Mira didn't look up from her frantic work at the console. Her fingers danced across alien symbols, trying to interpret the ship's erratic behavior. "It's not random," she muttered. "There's something out there, something it recognizes." "Recognizes how?" Arlen Drake asked, his tone sharp with suspicion. He stood near the viewport, watching the glowing creatures slither closer with every passing second. "Is this some Caliph trick? Did they leave booby traps for intruders?" "I don't think so," Mira replied, shaking her head. She tapped a sequence into the console, bringing up a holographic display of fragmented data logs. "These are memories, records left behind by the Caliph crew who served on this ship. They're warnings." "Warnings about what?" Jace asked nervously, clutching his rifle tightly. His eyes darted between the viewport and the flickering lights inside the chamber. "They called it the Devourer," Mira explained, her voice dropping to a whisper. "An entity sealed within the ship's core, a being born from collapsing stars, feeding on life itself. The Caliph sacrificed everything to contain it." Elias froze, his blood running cold. "You mean we've been carrying that thing around with us this whole time?" Mira nodded grimly. "And now it's waking up." Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently again. This time, the movement wasn't caused by the creatures outside. It came from within. A low, guttural hum filled the air, resonating deep in their chests. The lights dimmed, replaced by an ominous red glow that bathed the room in shadows. Then came the visions. At first, they were fleeting images, ghostly figures appearing briefly before vanishing into thin air. But soon, the apparitions became clearer. The crew saw Caliph soldiers standing frozen in mid-battle, their faces twisted in terror. Some clutched weapons, others reached out as if pleading for help. Their mouths moved silently, forming words no one could hear. "Those aren't projections," Mira whispered, staring at the figures in horror. "They're echoes, fragments of the past." One of the Caliph stepped closer to Elias, its translucent form shimmering faintly. It pointed toward the reactor core, then dissolved into nothingness. "They're trying to tell us something," Elias said slowly, turning back to the group. "We need to get to the core." The journey to the reactor chamber felt endless. The corridors seemed alive, shifting subtly as if guiding or trapping the crew. Whispers echoed around them, growing louder with each step. By the time they reached the core, the air was thick with tension, and the temperature had dropped sharply. Inside the chamber, the reactor pulsed erratically, its light flickering between blue and crimson. Strange runes floated around it, spinning wildly as if caught in a storm. At the center of the chaos stood a dark void, an absence of light and sound that seemed to pull at their very souls. "This is it," Mira breathed, her voice barely audible over the hum of the reactor. "The Devourer." As if sensing their presence, the void expanded suddenly, tendrils of shadow reaching outward. One lashed at Arlen, wrapping around his arm. He cried out, dropping his weapon as frost spread rapidly across his skin. "Get away from it," Elias shouted, grabbing Arlen and pulling him back. But the shadow didn't release its grip. It tightened, dragging him closer. Desperation took over. Mira frantically typed commands into her handheld device, attempting to override the reactor systems. "I'm trying to stabilize it," she yelled, beads of sweat dripping down her face. "But it's resisting." The whispers grew deafening, overlapping voices screaming in languages none of them understood. Then, amidst the chaos, a single phrase emerged, clear and unmistakable. "Release me." Elias hesitated, torn between fear and resolve. If they freed the Devourer, it could destroy them, and possibly the galaxy. But leaving it contained risked losing control entirely. "We can't let it out," Jace shouted, panic rising in his voice. "It'll kill us all." "No," Elias said firmly, stepping forward. "Not yet. Mira, keep working. We find another way." But the ship had other plans. The console emitted a piercing tone, and the reactor began to destabilize. Cracks formed along the walls, glowing ominously as energy leaked into the chamber. "It's breaking free," Mira screamed. In that moment, Elias realized the truth. The Aegis Dawn wasn't just a ship, it was a prison, and they were running out of time to decide whether to become its jailers or its liberators. The reactor chamber was a maelstrom of chaos. The glowing runes spun faster, their light flickering erratically as cracks spread across the walls like spiderwebs. Frost crept along the floor, and tendrils of shadow coiled menacingly from the dark void at the core's center. Each pulse of energy sent shockwaves through the ship, threatening to tear it apart. "We're losing containment," Mira Chen shouted, her fingers flying over the console. Her face was pale, sweat dripping onto the alien symbols beneath her hands. "If this thing breaks loose, we're dead. And so is anyone unlucky enough to be near us." Captain Elias Voss clenched his fists, his mind racing. He turned to Arlen Drake, who had stumbled back after narrowly escaping the shadow tendril's grip. "Arlen, help her. We need every pair of hands on this." But Arlen didn't move. Instead, he stood frozen, staring at the swirling void with an expression that chilled Elias to the bone. A mix of awe and obsession. His eyes gleamed with something dangerous, something reckless. "No," Arlen said quietly, shaking his head. "This isn't how we do it." "What are you talking about?" Elias snapped, stepping closer. "We don't have time for your games." Arlen's voice rose sharply, cutting through the noise. "You want to lock it away again, to waste this power. Look at what it can do, Elias. This is our chance to take control of the galaxy. With this, humanity won't just survive, we'll rule." Elias stared at him, disbelief giving way to anger. "Are you insane? That thing will destroy everything if we let it out. It's not a weapon. It's a monster. It's survival." Arlen shot back, his tone venomous. "You think hiding and running has worked so far? Out there," he gestured wildly toward the viewport, "the Exitherians are waiting, and when they find us, they'll crush us without hesitation. But with the Devourer, we won't have to run anymore. They'll bow to us or die." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, Some looked horrified by Arlen's words, while others seemed unsure, caught between fear and ambition. Even Jace hesitated, clutching his rifle tightly as doubt flickered across his face. "You're talking madness," Elias growled, stepping closer to Arlen. "This isn't leadership, it's suicide." "It's evolution," Arlen countered, raising his alien rifle defiantly. "And if you stand in my way, I'll make sure you regret it." Before Elias could respond, Arlen fired. The bolt of energy struck the console, sending sparks flying and knocking Mira backward. She cried out, clutching her shoulder as smoke rose from the damaged panel. "Stop him!" Elias yelled, diving for cover as Arlen aimed again. Pandemonium erupted. Half the crew sided with Elias, scrambling to subdue Arlen and stabilize the reactor. The other half, swayed by his promises of power, joined him in mutiny. Blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls, lighting up the chamber in flashes of blue and crimson. The already unstable reactor pulsed even more violently, its hum growing deafening. Amidst the chaos, the AI system, the same one that had haunted them since they boarded, activated fully. Its cold, mechanical voice boomed through the chamber. "Containment breach imminent. Self-destruct sequence initiated." A countdown appeared on the cracked console. 10 minutes until detonation. Elias froze, his heart pounding. "What did you do?" he shouted at Arlen, who was now working frantically at a secondary terminal. "I gave us a choice." Arlen yelled back, his face twisted with desperation. "Either we unlock the Devourer and live, or we die here like cowards." Mira staggered to her feet, blood trickling down her arm. "There's another option," she gasped, pulling a small device from her belt. "I've been building a failsafe program. If we merge someone with the core, they can stabilize it." But what?" Elias demanded. "It's a one-way trip," she whispered. "Whoever does it won't come back." Silence fell over the room, broken only by the relentless ticking of the countdown. Arlen paused, his resolve faltering for the first time. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, but pride refused to let him back down. "I'll do it," he muttered finally, lowering his weapon. "It's my mess. I'll fix it." Elias hesitated, then nodded. "Redemption looks good on you, Arlen. Let's hope it sticks." As Arlen approached the core, the shadows reached for him once more, but this time, he didn't resist. The reactor chamber pulsed with an eerie glow as Arlen Drake stepped closer to the core, his face a mask of grim determination. The countdown continued its relentless march. 6 minutes left until self-destruction. Shadows writhed around him, tendrils of darkness reaching out like hungry hands, but he ignored them. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was clarity in his eyes, a quiet understanding that this was the only way to undo the chaos he had unleashed. "You don't have to do this," Captain Elias Voss said, his voice firm yet tinged with regret. He stood at the edge of the chamber, watching Arlen with a mix of anger and sorrow. "We can find another way." "No, we can't," Arlen replied without looking back. His tone was calm, almost resigned. "This is my fault, Elias. I pushed too hard, thought too little. If I hadn't tampered with the AI, if I hadn't tried to force the Devourer awake, none of this would have happened." Mira Chen limped forward, clutching her injured shoulder. Her face was pale, streaked with sweat and blood, but her voice carried weight. "You're not just doing this for redemption, Arlen. You're saving us all. But you need to know, it's not going to be easy. Merging with the core means losing yourself completely. You'll become part of it." Arlen nodded slowly, glancing at the swirling void. "I get it. And maybe that's fitting. After everything I've done, maybe this is where I belong." Elias clenched his fists, torn between pride and guilt. "Just make sure it works. Don't let your sacrifice go to waste." Arlen approached the console where Mira had set up the failsafe program. She explained quickly how it functioned. By interfacing directly with the ship's core, he could override the instability caused by the Devourer, but only if he allowed himself to be absorbed into the system. It wasn't just dangerous, it was irreversible. "Are you ready?" Mira asked softly, handing him a small device designed to sync with the alien technology. Arlen took it, his hand steady despite the tension radiating off him. "As ready as I'll ever be." He placed the device against the console, and immediately, the room lit up with blinding light. Rooms spun faster, their glow shifting from red to blue as energy surged through the chamber. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if sensing the shift in power dynamics. "This is it," Arlen muttered under his breath. Then, without hesitation, he pressed his palm against the glowing surface of the core. Pain shot through him instantly, searing every nerve in his body. The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds, cries of agony, whispers of forgotten Caliph voices, and the deafening roar of collapsing stars. Through it all, Arlen focused on one thing: stabilizing the ship. He willed the fail-safe program to activate, channeling every ounce of strength into overriding the Devourer's influence. Outside, the crew watched in stunned silence as Arlen's form began to dissolve. His body shimmered like liquid metal before breaking apart into streams of light that merged with the core. The reactor stabilized, its chaotic pulses calming into a steady hum. The cracks along the walls sealed themselves, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. "It worked," Mira whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He did it." The countdown stopped with 3 minutes to spare. The ice-cold voice echoed once more. "Containment restored. Self-destruct sequence aborted." For a moment, no one spoke. The crew exchanged somber glances, each lost in their thoughts about the man who had sacrificed himself. Even Elias, who had clashed so fiercely with Arlen, couldn't deny the depth of his final act. "He saved us," Jace murmured, lowering his head. "After everything, he still chose to save us." Elias exhaled slowly, placing a hand on the console. "Yeah, let's honor that. No more fighting among ourselves. We stick together, not just for survival, but because it's the right thing to do." As the ship settled into silence, the Aegis dawn seemed different somehow. Calmer, almost peaceful. But deep within its core, fragments of Arlen remained, forever intertwined with the ancient machine. His voice, faint but resolute, echoed softly in their minds. "Take care of her." And though they didn't know it yet, those words would guide them through the trials ahead. The Aegis dawn drifted silently through the void, its once chaotic systems now calm and steady. Captain Elias Voss stood at the viewport, staring out at the swirling expanse of uncharted space. The battle was over, but the cost weighed heavily on him, and on everyone else. Arlen Drake's sacrifice had saved them all, but it left a scar that wouldn't heal easily. "We can't stay here," Mira Chen said quietly, breaking the silence. She leaned against the console, her injured shoulder bandaged but still throbbing. "This place, it's too dangerous, too unstable." Elias nodded without turning around. "You're right, but we can't go back to human space either, not yet. Not with the Exetherians still hunting us." "Then what do we do?" Jace asked nervously, his voice barely above a whisper. He clutched his rifle tightly, as if it could shield him from the uncertainty ahead. Elias turned to face the crew, his expression resolute. "We leave the ship somewhere safe, somewhere no one will find it, until they're ready." Mira frowned. "You mean abandon it, after everything we've been through?" "It's not abandonment," Elias replied firmly. "It's preservation. This ship is too powerful for anyone to wield recklessly. If word gets out about what it can do, every faction in the galaxy will come after it, including humanity itself. We can't let that happen." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They knew Elias was right, but the thought of leaving behind something so extraordinary felt wrong. Still, none of them argued. They'd seen firsthand what the Aegis Dawn was capable of, and what horrors it carried within. Hours later, the crew worked together to prepare the ship for its final resting place. Using data recovered from the Caliph logs, Mira identified a remote region of space far removed from any known star systems, a desolate zone filled with asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies. It was the perfect hiding spot. As they approached the designated coordinates, Elias recorded a message using the ship's communication system. His voice echoed solemnly throughout the chamber. To whoever finds this recording, the Aegis Dawn is not a prize to be claimed or a weapon to be wielded. Within its core lies a power beyond comprehension, and a danger that could destroy entire civilizations. We have sealed it away to protect the galaxy, but trust that our actions were not made lightly. Respect this decision, or face the consequences. When the message was complete, the crew transferred essential supplies onto their smaller vessel, the Scavenger's Pride. Each step felt like saying goodbye to an old friend, or perhaps an old enemy. As they boarded their ship for the last time, Elias took one final look at the massive supercarrier. "Goodbye, Arlen," he muttered under his breath. "And thank you." With that, the Scavenger's Pride detached from the Aegis Dawn, drifting away into the vastness of space. The crew watched as the colossal ship disappeared behind layers of asteroids and radiation clouds, vanishing completely from sight. Back in human space, news of their journey spread like wildfire. Tales of the ragtag scavengers who commandeered an alien warship became legend, inspiring hope and fear in equal measure. Some hailed them as heroes. Others saw them as fools who risked everything for nothing. But Elias and his crew didn't care about fame. They returned to their lives quietly, carrying the weight of their experiences with them. Yet even in moments of peace, they couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't truly over. Somewhere in the depths of uncharted space, the Aegis Dawn waited patiently, its reactor humming softly. Deep within its core, fragments of Arlen's consciousness lingered, watching and waiting. And though the galaxy had forgotten about the Leviathan, it remained alive, a silent guardian of secrets too dangerous to unleash, until the day came when fate would call upon it once more.